The Democrats won big in the off-year elections this week. Would it help end the government shutdown or prolong it? Markets have only known to tackle Trump in his second term. What if Trump the warrior were to show up suddenly? What should you be doing with your money right now? As expected, Democrats did well in the off-year elections held this week. In Virginia, Democrat Abigail Spanberger defeated Republican Winston Earl Sears to become the first female governor in the state. In New Jersey, Democrat Mikey Sherrill won the governorship, defeating the Republican Jack Ciattarelli. In New York City, Democrat Zohran Mamdani won the mayoral race, becoming the city's youngest mayor in more than 100 years. In California, voters approved Proposition 50 to redraw congressional maps that will boost the U.S. House seats held by the Democrats. What was not expected was just how well the Democrats did. Abigail Spanberger won by 15 percentage points and Mikey Sherrill by 13 points. Proposition 50 passed with a margin of 30%. Off-year elections typically see lower turnout, but Spanberger drew a vote count in Virginia that was nearly 85% of Kamala Harris' total last year. There's no beating around the bush about what all this means. Democratic voters were fired up. But fired up by what? In Virginia, New Jersey, and California, polls suggest that more than half of the electorate sees their vote as sending a message to Trump. Whether we should view these elections as a referendum on Trump or not, their results are consistent with Trump's rising disapproval rating. His national disapproval rating has increased by 10 points since the inauguration and by 2 points over the past week alone. The economy appears to be the main reason why Americans are souring on Trump. The disapproval of his handling of the economy has increased by 20 points since the start of his presidency. Trump says this week that his second term has been the greatest 9 months of the presidency. Voters apparently disagree. For the financial market, the million-dollar question is whether the election results will force him to change course regarding his economic policies. It is not an exaggeration to say that U.S. consumer confidence has collapsed since the start of the second Trump presidency. The University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index has fallen 18 points since January. Drop of this magnitude happens usually only at the start of a recession, and definitely not at the start of a new presidency. The only precedent in recent history is the first year of the second Bush presidency in 2005. The major driver behind the dive in consumer confidence in 2005 was a 60% spike in oil price between January and August that year. In contrast, the sharp drop in U.S. consumer confidence this year is in spite of falling oil price, falling mortgage rates, and a booming stock market. So what's going on? Trump campaigned as the voice of the forgotten working class. He says his trade war will help the working class. But so far, tariffs have only pushed up inflation and increased layoffs. Trump says his tariff will lead to a resurgence in American manufacturing. But the ISM Manufacturing Index has been in contractionary territory since March. According to ADP, manufacturing shed another 3,000 jobs in October. Trump owes his 2024 victory to a surge in youth votes, but people under 35 have been the hardest hit by the slowdown in the labor market this year. Younger people also have less savings to profit from the rise of the stock market. Consumer confidence among people under 35 fell sharply in October, even though data of those from 35 to 54 rose. The midterm elections are still a year from now, but things are not looking good for Trump and the Republican Party. What will happen to party unity, I wonder? So far in his second term, Trump has, at least so far, maintained a firm grip on his party. Any dissent, including from Elon Musk, has been crushed. This is why his big beautiful bill managed to clear Congress so quickly. After the election setback this week, will Trump still be able to rule unopposed? And will the defeat prompt a quicker end to the shutdown, or cause him to dig in even further? Bill Clinton famously said, "In politics, there are no permanent victories or defeats." Nowhere is that truer than in American politics. Only a few months ago, political obituaries were being written for the Democratic Party. Suddenly, not only they're back from the dead, but the momentum appears to be on their side. Trump no doubt helped them, but this comeback is one the Democrats earned. Unlike during Trump's first term, Democrats have steered away from personal attacks on Trump and concentrated on issue-based contrast. This has served them well. The election results this week support the view that the Democrats have gained the upper hand in the shutdown that is now the longest in U.S. history. This means that they're even less likely to compromise. Democratic Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut was quoted as saying this week that it would be very strange if on the heels of the American people having rewarded Democrats for standing up and fighting, the Democrats surrender without getting anything for the people we've been fighting for. What about Trump? Is he more likely to compromise? In my view, the answer is no. To compromise is to accept defeat. Trump hates losing. His political identity is built around winning. I could be wrong, but I don't see him backing down. What about the taco Trump of the last 9 months? I think the shutdown is a very different fight than Trump's trade war. For one thing, it is a much more public fight. Trump can't control and dictate a narrative like he does in his negotiations with China and other countries. Democrats have made their support for continual resolution conditional on the extension of Obamacare premium subsidies. Trump knows that if he gives in, he risks emboldening the Democrats to push for even more the next time. The Democrats are already framing next year's midterm as a fight to reverse the Medicaid cuts in Trump's big beautiful bill. These are Trump's choices. He can fight and risk becoming a lame duck after the midterm, or he can give in and risk becoming a lame duck immediately. I suspect Trump will double down first before he gives in. His renewed push this week for canceling the Senate filibuster rule reinforces my view. The market has only seen Trump the taco in his second term. How would the market react if Trump the warrior suddenly shows up? In my view, the results of the off-year election this week will prolong the shutdown. This is negative for the stock market, negative for the bond market in the short term, and positive for the dollar in the short term. Why? As I've argued in earlier videos, I think there are good reasons to expect a weak holiday shopping season ahead. If the shutdown drags to Thanksgiving, it will likely depress consumer spending further. This is why I'm short consumer discretionary against staples. In theory, this should be supportive for bonds. However, a prolongment of the shutdown means the data blackout will continue. This means the Fed can focus on the stock market than on the economy. In my view, Jerome Powell's pushback last week of another Fed cut in December is a sign that the Fed does not want to blow more air into the equity bubble. This means bonds will stay weak until the stock market cracks. The opposite is true about the dollar. Higher stocks, higher rates, and higher dollar. Lower stocks, lower rates, and lower dollar. The AI is the only game left in US stocks. I've been short Nasdaq for a while, and it's been quite painful. Trump helped turn the AI boom into a bubble. Can the shutdown burst the AI bubble? After the Democrats' victory this week, the odds have gone up. That much, I know. Thank you for listening.